Good morning, students. Let me introduce myself. My name is Viktoria Vitalyevna and I'm a teacher of English language of the Department of Foreign Languages and Translation. The discipline is lexicology. Lexicology as a branch of linguistics. Lexicology is a branch of linguistics, the science of language. The term lexicology is composed of two Greek morphemes, lexis meaning word or phrase and logos which denotes learning, a department of knowledge. Thus, the literal meaning of the term lexicology is the science of the word. The literal meaning, however, gives only a general notion of the aims and the subject matter of this branch of linguistic science. Since all its other branches also take account of words in one way or another, approaching them from different angles. Lexicology as a branch of linguistics has its own aims and methods of scientific research, its basic task being a study and systematic description of vocabulary in respect to its origin, development, and current use. Lexicology is concerned with words, variable word groups, phraseological units, and with morphemes which make up words. Etymologically, the vocabulary of the English language is far from being homogeneous. It consists of two layers: the native stock of words and the borrowed stock of words. In fact, native words comprise only 30% of the total number of words in the English vocabulary, but the native words form the bulk of the most frequent words actually used in speech and writing. Besides, the native words have a wider range of lexical and grammatical valency. They are highly polysemitic and productive in forming words clusters and set expression. Borrowings are words taken over from another language and modified according to the patterns of the receiving language. The number of borrowings in the vocabulary of a language and the role played by them is determined by the historical development of the nation speaking. The most effective way of borrowing is direct borrowing from another language, as a result of contrast with people. There are different ways of classifying the borrowed stock of words. First of all, the borrowed stock of words may be classified according to the nature of the borrowing itself as borrowing proper, translation loans, and semantic loans. Latin loans are classified into the subgroups. Early Latin loans. Those are the words which came into English through the language of Anglo-Saxon tribes. The tribes had been in contrast with Roman civilization and had adopted several Latin words denoting objects belonging to that civilization long before the invasion of Anglos, Saxons, and Jutes into Britain. For example, cup, kitchen, meal, port, wine. Later Latin borrowings to this group belonged the words which penetrated the English vocabulary in the 6th and 17th centuries, when the people of England were converted to Christianity. And the third period of Latin includes words which came into English due to the historical events, the Norman conquest in 1066 and the Renaissance of the revival of learning. Some words came into English through French, but some were taken directly from Latin. The latest stratum of Latin words. The words of this period are mainly abstract and scientific words, for example, vaccine, phenomenon, and vacuum. Lecture 2. Working definitions of principal concepts. The word isn't the smallest unit of the language. It consists of morphemes. The morpheme may be defined as the smallest meaningful unit which has a sound, form, and meaning and which occurs in speech only as a part of a word. Word formation is the creation of new words from elements already existing in the language. Every language has its own structural patterns of word formation. Morphemes are subdivided into root morphemes and affixational morphemes. The root morpheme is the lexical center of the word. It's the semantic nucleus of a word with which no grammatical properties of the word are connected. Affixational morphemes include inflections and derivational affixes. Inflection is an affixal morpheme which carries only grammatical meaning that's relevant only for the formation of word forms. For example, books, open, stronger. Derivational morpheme is an affixal morpheme which modifies the lexical meaning of the root and forms a new word. In many cases, it adds the part of speech meaning to the root, for example, management. Morphemes which may occur in isolation and function as independent words are called free morphemes. For example, pace, some, form. Morphemes which aren't found in isolation are called bound morphemes. Affixation is a formation of new words with the help of derivational affixes. Suffixation is more productive than prefixation. In modern English, suffixation is characteristic of noun and adjective formation, while prefixation is typical of verb formation. So, word composition is another type of word building which is highly productive. That's when new words are produced by combining two or more stems. Stem is that part of a word which remains unchanged throughout the paradigm and to which grammatical inflections and affixes are added. The bulk of compound words is motivated, and the semantic relations between the two components are transparent. Affixes are usually divided into living and dead affixes. Living affixes are easily separated from the stem, and dead affixes have become fully merged with the stem and can be singled out by a diachronic analysis of the development. Living affixes are in their turn divided into productive and non-productive affixes. In many cases, the choice of the affixes is a means of differentiating of meaning. Lecture 3. Synonymy, antonymy, and homonymy. Synonyms are two or more words of the same meaning belonging to the same part of speech, possessing one or more identical meaning. So interchangeable at least in some contexts without any considerable alteration in the national meaning, but differing in morphemic composition, phonemic shape, and shades of meaning, connotation, affective value and style, and emotional coloring peculiarities. Classification of synonyms. Vinogradov classified synonyms into ideographic words conveying the same notion but differing in shades of meaning. For example, battle or fight. Stylistic synonyms, words differing in stylistic characteristics, for example, to put off, to postpone. Absolute synonyms, words coinciding in all their shades of meaning and stylistic characteristics, for example, pilot or airman. Okay, so untruthfulness approach. The connotation of intensity, for example, to shout, to yell, to be low. Emotive connotation, alone, single, lonely. Evaluative, for example, sparkle, to shine. Good humor and happiness. Okay, for example, stylistic connotations, snack, refreshment, or feast. The connotation of duration, for example, shudder, brief action, to shiver, lost in action. Causative, for example, to blush, from modesty, shame, embarrassment, to redden from indignation. Connotation of manner, for example, to stroll, to trot, to pace, to stumble. Connotation of attendant, circumstances. So connotation of attendant features, beautiful associated with classical features and figure, pretty associated with some small delicate features. The synonymic dominant express notion common to all synonyms of the group in the most general way without contributing any additional information to the manner of intensity of the referent. Characteristics of the dominant: high frequency of usage, broad combinability, ability to be used in combination with various classes of words, broad general meaning, lack of connotation. Antonyms are two or more words of the same language belonging to the same part of speech and to the semantic field, identical in style and nearly identical in distribution, associated and used together so that their denotative meaning renders opposite notions. Classification of antonyms. According to the type of notion they express, contradictory antonyms express mutually opposed and denying one another notions, for example, married, not single. Contrary antonyms are so opposite to each other that the language admits possibilities between and beyond them. Classification by John Lyons. Antonyms proper. They are regularly gradable. For example, love, hate, love, attachment, liking, indifference, dislike, and etc. Complementary antonyms. Conversus note one and the same referent and viewed from different angles, that of subject and object. So, homonyms are the words different in meaning and either identical both in sound and spelling or identical only in spelling or sound. Classification of homonyms. The most widely accepted classification of them is the following: homonyms proper, for example, perfect homonyms, homophones, and homographs. Homonyms proper are words identical in pronunciation and spelling. For example, ball as a round object used in game, ball as a gathering of people for dancing. Homophones are words of the same sound but of different meaning. Homographs are words different in sound and meaning but accidentally identical in spelling. So, Smirnitsky classification. Full lexical homonyms, for example, match and matches, a short piece of wood, and a game, contest. Partial homonyms are subdivided into three groups: simple lexicogrammatical partial homonyms and complex lexicogrammatical partial homonyms. A metaphor. A metaphor is a figure of speech that describes an object or an action in a way that isn't literally true, but helps explain an idea or make a comparison. A metaphor states that one thing is another thing. If you take a metaphor literally, it will probably sound very strange. Are there actually any sheep, black or otherwise, in your family? Metaphors are used in poetry, literature, and anytime someone wants to add some color to their language. Those are the use of metaphor, and this is the official definition. A word or phrase for one thing that used to refer to another thing in order to show or suggest that they are similar. An object activity or idea that is used as symbol of something else. Metaphors are the form of figurative language which refers to words or expressions that mean something different from their literal definition. In the case of metaphors, the literal interpretation would often be pretty silly. For example, imagine what these metaphors would look like if they took them at face value. Bob is a couch potato. Baby, you're a firework. I'm a titanium. Metaphors show up in literate poetry, music, and writing, but also in speech. If you hear someone say, metaphorically speaking, it probably means that you shouldn't take what they said as a truth, but it's more of an idea. For example, it's finals period and after exam students are saying things like, the test was murder, it's fair guess that they're still alive if they're making comments about the test. So this is an example of speaking metaphorically or figuratively. Metaphors can make your words come and live, or in the case of the exam, to death. Often you can use a metaphor to make your subject more relatable to the reader or to make a complex story easier to understand. They can also be a tremendous help when you want to enhance your writing with imagery. As a common figure of speech, metaphors turn up everywhere, from novels and films to presidential speeches and even popular songs. When they are especially good, they are hard to miss if you're trying to tell the difference between metaphors and similes. The more obvious comparison and similes make them easier to identify as figures of speech. Let's rewind the definition of metaphor as the figure of speech. Another example that has a tune, you're my sunshine. Also, you aren't literally a ray of light. You probably have a similarity uplifting effect on the speaker. But the definition of metaphor is actually broader than that. Often metaphor is used loosely to mean any kind of symbolism. In literature, there are many other types of metaphors too. For example, implied, sustained, dead, and others. Lecture 5. The history of British lexicography. Lexicography is an important branch of linguistics which converts the theory and practice of compiling dictionaries. The history of lexicography of the English language goes as far back of the Old English period, where its first traces are found in the form of glosses of religious books, with interlinear translation from Latin. Regular bilingual English-Latin dictionaries already existed in the 15th century. The first attempt at a bigger dictionary including all the words of the language, not only the difficult ones, was made by Nathaniel Bailey. He published the first edition of Universal Etymological English Dictionary in 1721. It was the first to include pronunciation etymology. The first big explanatory dictionary, a dictionary of the English language, in which the words are dedicated from their originals, are illustrated in their general signification by examples from the best writers in 2 volumes, was compiled by Samuel Johnson and published in 1755. The most important innovation of Johnson's dictionary was the introduction of illustrations of the meaning of the words by examples from the best writers. Pronunciation wasn't marked because Johnson was very sure of the wide variety of the English pronunciation and thought it impossible to set up a standard there. He paid attention only to these aspects of vocabulary where he believed he could improve linguistic usage. Johnson's influence was tremendous. As to pronunciation, the first pronouncing dictionary was published in 1780 by Thomas Sheridan, grandfather of a great dramatist. In 1791 appeared the Critical Pronouncing Dictionary and Expositor of the English Language by John Walker, an actor. The golden age of English lexicography began in the last quarter of the 19th century, when the English Philological Society started work on compiling the Oxford English Dictionary, which was ordinarily named New English Dictionary on Historical Principles. The objective of this colossal work was and still to trace the development of English words from their form in Old English. Where they weren't found in Old English, it was shown when they were introduced into the language. So the development of each meaning and its historical relation to other meaning in the same words as well displayed. For words and meaning which have become obsolete, the date of the latest occurrence is provided. All this done by means of dated quotations ranging from the oldest and recent appearances of the word in questions. The first part of the dictionary appeared in 1884 and the last in 1928. Later it was issued in 12 volumes in order to hold new words, a 3-volume. Supplement was issued in 1933. These volumes were revised in 70s. Nearly all the material of the original supplement was retained and a large body of the most recent Association of the English Language added. Lecture 6. The History of American Lexicography. Curiously enough, the first American dictionary of the language was compiled by a man whose name was Samuel Johnson. Samuel Johnson in 1798 published a small book entitled A School Dictionary. This book was followed in 1821 by another dictionary by the same author, which showed already some signs of Americanisms. It was Noah Webster, universally considered to be the father of American lexicography, who broke away from English tradition and embodied in his book the specialty American usage of his time. His great work, The American Dictionary of the English Language, appeared in 2 volumes in 1828. In many respects, Webster followed the lead of Dr. Samuel Johnson, the British lexicographer, but he also improved and connected many of Johnson's etymologies, and his definitions are often more exact. Webster attempted to simplify and spelling the pronunciation that were current in the USA of the period. He devoted many years to the collocation of words and the preparation of more accurate definitions. So Webster realized the importance of the language for development of a nation and devoted his energy to giving the American English the status of independent language, distinct from British English. At that time, the idea was progressive and it helped the unification of separate states into a federation into the latest edition of Webster's International Dictionary of the English Language. Not Americanisms, words not used in America, but so-called Britishisms were made of. Webster's dictionary enjoyed great popularity from its first editions. This popularity was due not only to the accuracy and clarity of definitions, but also to richness and additional information of encyclopedic character, which had become a tradition in American lexicography. Soon after Webster's death, 2 publishers and booksellers of Massachusetts, George and Charles Merriam, acquired the rights of his dictionary from his family and started the publication of revised single-volume editions under the name Merriam-Webster. So the staff working for the modern editions is a big illustration numbering hundreds of specialists in different branches of human activity. The other great American dictionaries are the Century Dictionary that first completed in 1891. Funk and Reynolds' New Standard Dictionary first completed in 1895. The Random House Dictionary of the English Language completed in 1967. The Heritage Illustrated Dictionary of the English Language first published in 1969, and the World Book Dictionary presenting a synchronic review of the language in the 20th century. Lecture 7. The main problems in lexicography. The problems of lexicography are connected with the selection of head words, the number of structure and contents of the vocabulary entry in different types of dictionaries. The starting group of lexicographical problems deals with selection. The first one, in the first place, the problem of whether a general descriptive dictionary, whether unilingual and bilingual, should give the historical information about a word. The second, for the purpose of dictionary which mustn't be too massive, selection between scientific and technical terms is also a very important task. The third, it's a debatable point whether a unilingual explanatory dictionary shouldn't try to cover all the words of the language, including neologisms, nouns, words, and slang, etc. And note with impartial accuracy all the words actually used by English people, or whether as the great English lexicographer of the 18th century, Samuel Johnson, used to think it should be prospective and prohibitive. The other problem, which of the selected units have the right of separate entry and which are to be included under one common head word. These are, in other words, the issues of separateness and sameness of words. The first deals with syntagmalic boundaries of word units and has to solve such questions as whether each other is a group of 2 separate words to be treated separately under the head words each and other, and whether each other is a unit deserving a special entry. So, Chambers' 20th century dictionary combines them under one head word. It takes them a variance of the same word, for example, hence the term sameness. The problem is even more complicated with variants belonging to the same part of speech. This involves differentiation between polysemy and homonymy. The second group of problems deals with the structure and contents of a dictionary entity in different types of dictionaries. A historical dictionary, the Oxford Dictionary, for instance, is primarily concerned with the development of the English dictionary. So the etymologies are either comparative and confined to a single language. The development is illustrated by quotations ranging from the oldest and recent usages of the word in question. A synchronic dictionary should also show the distribution of every word. It has been traditionally done by labeling words as belonging to a certain part of speech and by noting some special cases for grammatical or lexically bound meaning. Thus, the word spin is labeled in the Coincide Oxford Dictionary, so in which gives a general idea distribution. Its various senses are shown in connotation with words that may serve as subject or object. The third group of lexicographic problems is the problem of definitions. A unilingual dictionary. An explanation of meaning may be achieved by a group of synonyms which together give a fairly general idea, but one synonym is never sufficient for the purpose because no absolute synonyms exist. Besides, if synonyms are the only type of explanation used, the reader will be placed in a vicious circle of synonymic references, with not a single word actually explained. Definitions serve the purpose much better. So, if they are concerned with things for which the words are names, they are termed encyclopedic. American dictionaries are for the most part traditional encyclopedic, which accounts for much attention paid to graphic illustration. They furnish their readers with far more information about facts and think that their British counterparts, which are more linguistic and more fundamentally accurate with the purely lexical data, with the grammatical properties of words, their components, their stylistic features, and etc. Lecture 8. Types of dictionaries. The term dictionary is used to denote a book listing words of a language with their meaning and often with data regarding pronunciation, usage, and origin. There are also dictionaries that concentrate their attention upon only one of these aspects: pronouncing dictionaries and etymological dictionaries. So, for example, the Oxford Dictionary. For dictionaries in which the words and their definitions belong to the same language, the term unilingual or explanatory is used, whereas bilingual or translation dictionaries are those that explain words by giving their equivalents in another language. Unilingual dictionaries are further subdivided with regard to the time. Diachronic dictionaries, of which the Oxford English Dictionary is the main example, reflect the development of the English vocabulary by recording the history of form and meaning for every word registered. They may be contrasted to synchronic or descriptive dictionaries of current English concentrate with present meaning and usage of words. Both bilingual and unilingual dictionaries can be general and special. General dictionaries represent the vocabulary as a whole. The group includes the certain volumes of the Oxford English Dictionary, alongside with any miniature pocket dictionary. Some general dictionaries may have very specific aims and still be considered general due to their coverage. They include, for instance, frequency dictionaries, a list of words, each of which followed by record of the frequency of occurrence is one of several sets of written matter. A rhymic dictionary is also a general dictionary through arranged in inverse order. General dictionaries are contrasted to special dictionaries whose stated aim is cover only a certain specific part of the vocabulary. Special dictionaries may be further subdivided depending on whether the words are chosen according to the sphere of human activity in which they are used. For example, technical dictionaries, the type of the units themselves, phraseological dictionaries, or a relationship existing between them, dictionaries or synonyms. The first subgroup embraces specialized dictionaries which register and explain technical terms for various branches of knowledge, art and trade, linguistic, medical, technical, economical terms, and unilingual books of the type giving definitions of terms are called glossaries. The second subgroup deals with specific language units, with phraseology, abbreviations, neologisms, borrowings, surnames, toponyms, proverbs, and sayings. The third subgroup contains synonymic dictionaries. Dictionary regarding the complete vocabulary of some author are called Dictionaries requiring the complete vocabulary of the some author are called concordancies. They should be distinguished from these that deal only with difficult words, glossaries. To this group are also referring dialect dictionaries and dictionaries of Americanisms. Lecture 9. Irony. Irony is a figure of speech in which the intended meaning of words is different from their actual meaning. If you're fluent in sarcasm, this might sound like the same thing. Sarcasm is the fact type of verbal irony, but whereas sarcasm only characterizes someone's speech, irony can be found in words, situations, or circumstances. Simply put, irony is a difference between appearance for expectation and reality. Irony can add an existing twist, strike at emotions, and remind us of our own lives, making a work of fiction more relatable and reflective of the human experience. Types of irony. There are three main types of irony that frequently appear in literature and art. They are verbal, situational, and dramatic. Verbal, situational, and dramatic. Verbal irony. Verbal irony is a form that probably reminds you of sarcasm, where you say the opposite of what you mean. You are using verbal irony. For example, after your sister says something foolish, you respond, "What a great idea, genius." Verbal irony usually produces a comic effect, although often at expense of speaker or someone else. Lemon Snicket frequently use verbal irony, which is used to paint an image while simultaneously producing a comedic effect. Today was a very cold and bitter day, as cold and bitter as a cup of hot chocolate. If a cup of hot chocolate had vinegar added to it were placed in a refrigerator for several hours, verbal irony forces readers to think a bit harder about the writer's intentions and usually offer them a snicker or sneak in return for their efforts. Situational irony. Situational irony involves sharp contrasts or contradictions between the audience expectation and the actual outcome of situation. A pilot with a fear of heights is an example of situational irony, since we would expect someone who works in an altitude of 37,000 feet to be a bit more accustomed to heights. This kind of irony is commonly employed in sitcoms or comedic films. However, situational irony can also take a tragic direction. So, dramatic irony. When dramatic irony is used in films or literature, the audience knows more about what is really going on or what is to come than the characters. More often than not, dramatic irony produces a tragic effect. For example, a William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, the readers know that Juliet has taken a sleeping potion to take her death, but Romeo, who believes either she's really dead or proceeds to actually kill himself. Dramatic irony fills readers with anticipation and heightens their interest. By using irony in your own creative writing, you can add meaning to your text and make your story more intriguing for audiences. Lecture 10. Metonymy. Metonymy is the figure of speech in which something is called by a new name that's related in meaning to the original thing or concept. For example, it's common practice to refer to celebrity life and culture in the United States as Hollywood, as in Hollywood is obsessed with a new diet. The meaning of this statement isn't the place itself has any obsessions, of course, but instead refers to the celebrities and vulnerable celebrities who reside there. Common examples of metonymy. As noted above, Hollywood can act as metonym for celebrity culture. There are many other place names that are metonymical in the same way, such as Wall Street for the financial sector and Washington for the United States government. However, there are many more words in common usage that there are metonyms. Here are more examples of metonymy. The big house, it means, refers to a prison. The pen can refer to prison or to the act of writing. Stuffed shirts, people in position or authority, especially in a business setting. The crown, a royal person, and the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Cowboys, and etc. are terms regularly used as a metonym for the players on the team. This is a less obvious metonym because often a team name a group of people. Yet, of course, the football players who make up the Dallas Cowboys are in fact Cowboys. The New York Times, Morgan Stanley, Wells Fargo, etc. Any organization of company name is often used to stand in for the people who work there, such as the New York Times stated that, or Wells Fargo has decided that. Difference between metonymy and synecdoche. Metonymy and synecdoche are very similar figures of speech, and some consider synecdoche to be a specific type of metonymy. Synecdoche occurs when the name of a part is used to refer to the who, such as there are many hungry mouths to feed. The mouths stand in for the hungry people. The definition of metonymy is more expansive, including concepts that are many associated in meaning and are necessarily parts of the original thing or concept. Significance of metonymy and literature. Scholars have long been interested in metonymy as a literary and rhetorical device. Ancient Greek and Latin scholars discussed the way in which metonymy metonymy is changed words and meanings by providing new references and connotations between concepts. So, authors have used metonymy for millennia for many different reasons. One primary reason is simply to address something in more poetic and unique way. Authors can also add more complexity and meaning to ordinary words by using metonymy, thereby drawing the reader's attention to what otherwise wouldn't be noticed. Sometimes metonymy is also helpful to make statements more concise. The discipline is finished. Thank you very much.